Welcome to Third Song In with Chris Erickson and Tom Polachek. You're about to listen to episode three as episode four. We originally recorded a show about game shows and thought that it was fitting to move it up a slot in light of the passing of Wink Martindale. With this being episode three, our recommendations will be slightly out of order, as we'll be recommending from 2003 instead of 2004. Did you get all that? Good. Enjoy the show.
This is how it all started. Mixtapes, traveling tapes, playlists. This episode is about sharing music.
Bust out your cassette tapes, people. We're going to do it. Can
Yeah,
you believe that's
so
how we started this? Is like, I'm still trying to think about that. Like, how did we record onto a cassette tape? Like, I almost forget. I mean, I need to push a button,
there's buttons,
but
two buttons. You had to press two
you had to
at the
push
same
two at
time.
the same time. But what source were we recording from?
In my case, I remember initially it was a cassette to cassette recorder.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I think, and I don't know what you had at home because we started doing this after we parted ways. You
Yeah.
were probably in
Jersey
DC
or
or
DC or Jersey. Yeah.
Jersey, right? Because initially you went to Rutgers.
Yep.
Didn't you go to Rutgers did you get your
Jews.
graduate degree?
No, and then
No.
I went to DC for my graduate degree. Yeah.
Right. You finished your undergrad at Rutgers, if that's
Yeah.
what it was.
Yep.
So I don't
Yep.
know what equipment you had. I know at that point I had a stereo system that had a cassette to cassette component. And basically I had a two-piece stereo system, right? You had the receiver and
Yep.
the cassette to cassette. Oh no, and a CD player. By that point I had a CD player too. So I probably did most of my recording was CD to cassette. And then I would use the cassette to cassette because I would make a copy of the
Oh,
final
that's right.
product whenever we
Yeah.
finished one. But what I don't remember, and maybe you do, is whose idea was it to put one song on a cassette and mail it to the other guy? Do you remember who did it first?
I don't know. Based on how we organize shit, I'm guessing it was me because I was like, it's like the least efficient way to do a mixtape.
Yeah, although back then, what else were you going to do, really? I mean, I guess you
Yeah,
could come
because
up
we
with
wanted
it.
to wrote, we tried to riff. Like we're going to
Right.
talk about this, I know, but there was at least one where I remember there was a riff songs that had an allusion to nothing in it. And I remember being so proud I did a Roger Clyne song that's entitled Nada. Um, so we would do that sort of stuff, and you had to let the other person like riff. Like we couldn't
Right.
do like four or five in a row. There may have been some where we decided to do a couple in a row to cut down on, but I don't think so. I think we largely went back and forth.
Yeah, so I guess just to maybe rewind and start back at the beginning, although I really don't remember who did it first. What I do think happened was one of us put a song on a cassette tape and mailed it with no other, nothing else in the envelope. And I don't think any warning that it was coming. I swear to God, it just went out. I feel like I got a tape from you with one song on it and nothing else.
Hmm.
And when I say cassette, I mean a blank cassette tape, except there
Yep.
was a single song recorded on it. So then I think at that point it just came and it was a song you liked, and then I just put a song I liked on it and sent back. And I think we were trying to probably one up each other in terms of artists that the other guy hadn't heard of or songs that they weren't aware of. That's vaguely what I think happened. But all I remember is that I get it. I put a song on. I'd send it to you, and then it was literally weeks before I'd get anything back, and sometimes even months. It would take a long time because we were sending it regular mail, recording on cassette, and then sending it back.
Thank good for that durable plastic cover that the
Yeah.
cassettes came in.
And I have to tell you, dude, I turned my house upside down over the weekend before recording this because I know somewhere I have a handful of those cassettes, could not find them anywhere. My guess is they're in a shoebox in the crawl
Yep.
space of my basement. I looked every single place where I would keep old stuff or memorabilia, and I could not find a cassette anywhere.
I've looked in the past. There's a spot up in the attic that's like 5 boxes down that I mean, I'd have to move a boatload of stuff around. That would be the only place I could think they would be. I can still see that, like I can still visualize how like we wrote in each song on those little
Right.
pre,
Different handwriting. One
yeah,
line
different
is
handwriting.
yours than mine. And eventually, when we would do it, and I don't think the first one was this way, but I think the second one was we put a title on it. I think I may have sent one back that had like a title or maybe just a note that said something songs or so we actually tried to do it by theme. I think after the first one, or maybe it was after the first couple, but eventually we did make a point of trying to write or record songs that fit whatever that theme was, which of course it was the old precursor to what we try to do now. But what would be your estimate be just in terms of cassettes? How many of those we sent back?
I thought we were approaching double digits. I thought,
Yeah.
I mean, I would say I was gonna say somewhere between like 8 and 12 because that's a you got to think about it, it's a long time to make those. And
Yeah, I mean
then
it was years, and it was also the years where you had a kid. Your daughter was born
yeah,
before, like 4 years, I think, before Anna was born. So there was work, careers, a
grad school.
family,
Yeah.
grad school. I mean, there were reasons, there were delays. It wasn't just, hey, set it aside and forget about it. But there was a little bit of that too. But on the other hand, despite all that, we continued to do it for 10 years probably. So
Yeah.
I'd say conservatively one cassette a year we probably completed over a period of about 10 years.
So two quick questions. Well, one memory that's probably faulty. I thought at one point we got really clever and did two at a time. Because I sort of remember, and it'd be different themes, obviously, that just sort of cut down on the mailing back and forth. So
I think
that's
you're right.
one recollection. I do distinctly remember that. And then what did we ever migrate over to copying to DVD to CDs? I mean, I know it's
I
harder because you always had to do like I thought you had to do like an entire CD versus song by song.
At least I did. I never found a way to like send one and then have you
Yeah,
record on it and send it back. So no, I we went when we made the switch, we would switched from the traveling cassette tape to playlists
yeah,
where we were just texting songs. And there was a pretty long gap of at least a handful of years where we had finished a cassette tape, hadn't sent any, started another one, and just kind of dropped it for a while.
yeah,
And my guess is, at least talking from my own perspective, is that's because we were in the middle of soccer games, elementary school, junior high school,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. And you may remember, because I think your playlists were time stamped in some way. But do you remember when we started texting the names of songs back and forth?
I can look and see, and I think the very first one that we did, we just called, or I called it Check and D, and it is time stamped 2021.
Yes, that makes sense. And so we probably started in 2020. Well, I guess it depends because it certainly takes less time to text a song and plug it into a playlist than it did to mail stuff. But I'm guessing it was either 2020 or 2021 that we started doing that. And I bet you we hadn't exchanged songs in probably 5 years prior to that. And we'd lost touch a little bit, which is to say, I mean, we knew where each other was, and every once in a while there'd be a
Right.
random text, but text messaging definitely rekindled all of that one. And again, I think you sent me a song and and said, let's make a playlist or something like that, like completely out of the blue. I'm pretty sure you started it, and then all of a sudden, even though we weren't speaking very often, we were texting every couple of weeks, probably something like that.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I hate to get all sappy and shit, but it's also why we went to the podcast. So it give us a chance
For
to
sure.
talk more because I don't, maybe you are, but I'm not a huge phone talker. Like I
Right.
don't spend, I know I have friends who to this day will spend hours on phone calls and I just don't. My son's in school out in Arizona and we talk at least
Oh.
once a week, but it's usually just it's a couple minutes to check in and I always tell him, I'm like, dude, I love you so much, but I just don't talk on the phone. The shortness of our conversations, let's make them quality, not quantity. Um, but speaking of quantity, we definitely embraced the new format because our first playlist that I have a record of had 59 songs on
Yes. Yeah. And
it.
that one was more of a kind of I want to one up you, right? Because I
Yes.
think I titled that D checklist.
Yep.
And it and although it's funny, I said actually I think you must have texted and said, "Hey, let's do this," because I show the first song on that list was actually a song I picked.
Yeah.
So I think you came up with the idea. I said, great idea. And I'm not even sure I said anything other than I just texted back the name of the song Wilder Days by Morgan Wade. And then we were off to the races. And like you said, and what's funny is I did mine. My playlists are all on Apple Music because was particularly then was my service of choice. It's where all my music is and was. And I think yours was on Spotify even at that time,
Yep.
which works well for us now because that one does seem to have a timestamp as to the playlist, whereas I can't figure out by looking at my lists when we did what. But that one was
So,
new
yeah.
music, right? That was just like,
Yes.
hey, this is a cool new artist. Because your first one was Casey Anderson, and that the song you put on that list was Some Depression, which I immediately put on like two other playlists of mine and still listen to all the time.
Yeah, this was our attempt to just share, like, this is truly an attempt to catch up
Yeah,
musically.
yeah,
And we just kept going. And I think that's by the time we got to, and the last song I show, and you told me, I was like, let's wrap it up, Chris. I'm like, all right. And I don't know why I thought it thematically closed it, but it was drink to sleep, which is a song
yes.
about drinking yourself to sleep. So it
Right.
seemed like a perfect closing song. And then from there, and I'm not sure if I have all of them. I think I do. They're all in text somewhere, but we started going more thematically, and we were a
Yeah.
little, I don't know, we just had some fun with it. It wasn't like super creative, but we liked the alphabet a lot because we did a song, we did it one from A to Z is what I called it. So the song titles had to start with the letter of the alphabet. So you went first, I with an A, and then I did an A and a B, and then you did a B and a C. I did a C and a D, and
Yeah.
so that gives us two songs for every letter in the alphabet. Hence, somehow we only had 44 tracks. Oh, I know why, because some of them like sort of disappear for some reason over the years. Like they either drop from the service and then they never add them
Yeah.
back. I still see that they're on there, but they're not counted as finishing off. And then we did something similar with artists. So I just called it Alpha Artist. So we did AABB, whatever, by the artist name. We did one that I called Someplace Musical. So the title had to have a reference to a place, city often.
Yeah,
We did
that
a
one
cut.
it's funny because we didn't tell each other what our titles
I
were.
know.
So I had the ones you just talked about, I had Alpha List, and then one was just Alpha by artist. The place name one I had was Geography Lesson. What do you show next?
I'm not sure these are in order, but
Yeah,
I
man.
have What's in a Name where somebody's name had to be in the title, with the first song being Engine Joe.
Yes. Yeah, I called that name check. And that was like, so those were names, just individuals' names. And again, that's a huge long list. And you did the last one for that as well. You're pretty good at putting the final touch on one because my last pick was Blow Oscar by
I remember
Aspodes.
that one.
And
Yep.
then we decided to finish it up after that, and you finished with what's his name, which is hilarious to me. So, because then I know, and again, I'm not sure it was the very next one we did, but the next one that I have on the list, just alphabetically, I called Name Drop, which
Hmm.
instead of doing names was songs that referenced actual
Yes.
people, and generally, I think referenced other musicians. Right? I don't
Right.
think, and those were not necessarily in the title.
Right.
I was always, and I think you're better at it than me at digging out stuff from the lyrics where there might be a reference. I would go for low hanging fruit like Alex Chilton by the Replacements, or I'm trying to think, what was it? Oh, Lucinda Williams. Although I think you picked that one.
And you may have to, because I did switch at one point from Spotify to YouTube Music.
I
And
am.
I used a tool to supposedly convert all my playlists. I don't think it was an awesome tool. The other one that we did that I really liked was the cover song one.
Mm-hmm.
I called it Cover Up. I think referencing Isabel's song. That one, that was kind of short for us. 28 tracks I have. So
Yeah, that one I called coverage, and I did that one. We've already used as, I shouldn't say we used it as the basis, but we did an episode early on
yeah,
about
cover.
cover songs and artists covering other artists. And I know that was specifically inspired by the fact that we had. I think that coverage one was one of the last playlists we did. Because what's funny is since we started the podcast, we don't do this anymore.
No,
Because
I know it's true. It's
And again, when I go through these lists, I mean, we were coming up with some pretty crazy themes to use to exchange these playlists and text back and forth. But now when we text back and forth more than we ever did back then, but it's generally podcast stuff. So we're just trying to stay ahead of the game.
so my favorite moment I remember on that one, it's a tiny little riff, but you did Raspberry Beret by Hindu Love Gods. And then I Would Die for You by Lydia Loveless. And I think I could look, but I think Prince won. Yeah, Nothing Compares to You, which I think is
Oh yeah, we
technically a
went on a
Prince
little
song.
riff inside the riff, right?
Yeah, riff inside the riff. And I do think that Prince won as the founding artist for the most cover songs.
Yes,
So
yes. Everybody wants to cover him because yeah, there's a couple places like I know, and yeah, this has pretty sure it's me. So Gear Daddy's covered Little Red Corvette,
yes.
and you had yeah, Lydia Lovelace, I Would Die for You, and you're right, he just kept coming back because everybody wants to cover Prince, it seems
And I do remember texting back, I'm like, dude, another Prince song.
like. Yes,
So
yeah.
I am going to put a mark right here in our podcast. This is where your dad is fast forwarding. So,
Oh yes, yes. Yeah, he's done. He is finished now.
as we
This is
dive
a
into the details and the weeds of all the songs we love so much and
that's
why we
right.
love them.
In fact, Dad, all right, we're going to take a pause now. You can go ahead and text me how boring this is, and then you can come back to this podcast episode.
There you go.
But to continue that, so here's one. Here's and I wish I could remember the order we did this, or I wish I had timestamps, but I don't. But we also did one that I called awkwardly Faithing.
Oh
And
yeah.
we did a whole playlist that referenced either religion or well, I get basically religion or faith, I suppose, one of those two things. And that's really a great playlist. Like, some of it is some of the references or some of the songs are very pro faith, some of them are, not so much, I would say. But there's just some great titles there too, like Bottle and a Bible, God Answers Back. God, there's just a million. We did it. That's another like 40 song playlist that are just referencing faith.
Yeah.
And at the end, I think we get a little punchy because I want to say I'm counting now, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The last 7 songs all have the word angel in the title. So I think maybe we got a little lazy. I'm not sure, but it ends up us wanting to play off what the other guy did last, I think. But it's really funny to look at
Yeah,
in writing.
you got to send me that one. I don't know how I'm missing some of these, but I am. And the other one that I remember that I also don't have on my list is the melancholy one,
That
which
one.
we should share with Andy, because he
Yeah,
likes when we
that's
dive into sadness.
yeah, I do have that one called Melancholic is what I titled it. And that, you know what? That was one of the ones I think one of the early ones we did when we decided to do themes.
Yeah.
Um, and you started out with a Grace Potter song that featured Jackson Brown, and that really is a great list. Like I still listen to this one every once in a while. I just put it on because there are just so many great songs on there. But the gist of all of this is it was, and you said it already, but it was really just an excuse for us to get back in touch, and it eventually turned into, hey, let's try to do a podcast. And we loosely based it upon the fact that we were communicating through all these songs we like and all these artists we like. And, the core, the kernel of the whole podcast is we could do a playlist. We could add songs every episode to a playlist. And everything else that we talk about, all the, this part of the podcast, the recommendations by year, all of that stuff was secondary to us just wanting to get together, talk about it. Somebody new that we had heard, or just try to see if we could challenge each other to come up with a song that was on a specific theme for a playlist.
And I'm going back to the melancholy one briefly.
Yes.
This is also what inspired the draft for me. I know we'll throw in a draft every once in a while, probably not on this one. But you gave me a chance. You're like, dude, you're first. There is a 1v1 or whatever it's called. You can have it, but this is your only chance. I was like, oh, fuck, I don't know what that is. So I went with the song you referenced, and the very next song you took was Seeger.
Right. I was sure you were going to pick Bob Seger because I think Night Moves, first of
Yes.
all, one of the best rock ballads ever. It is such a beautiful song, but it is to me the most melancholy song I've ever heard. I would listen to that when I was 14 years old and I would long for the good old days. I didn't have any good old days, but I would listen to that and I felt like I was 80 years old just looking back on. Remember that? I love that song, and I was 100% sure that you were going to pick that song first, but I was also absolutely positive that if you didn't get it, that was going to be my number one choice.
Yeah, I didn't take it. And as soon as you took it, I'm like, son of a bitch, what is wrong with me?
And that was
That's
cool
when
too
it,
because you picked that the song you picked, which is called Each Other, came out in 2020, which was very recent at the time, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
yep.
Because I don't think there's a song on this list before 2020. So I'm guessing. Oh no, I take it back. There was one from 2022. But this list lasted a long while too. Like we did this one for a long time. All I was gonna say is we went from, you picked a 2020 song, and then Night Moves was from 1976.
Yeah. I don't remember if this is what spurred it, but each other, that song is a COVID song. I mean, and it is
Yeah,
depressing as hell. And they all sing their own little riff, sorry to use that word again, on what the COVID experience was like. And that was just such a down period for all of us. So I guess that's also roughly lines up with when we were, somewhat of why we got back together, because we're all stuck in the house.
yeah.
And it's like, dude, let's do some playlists. We got
Yeah,
nothing
I
else to
think you're
do.
right. I think you're right. I think you were the one who's like, "Hey, let's do this," and we're probably staring at the walls and didn't have anything else to do.
Playlists have been the foundation of this. They will continue to be the foundation of it. All of our playlists are put up. We do songs from each episode and create a playlist for each season. And then we have special guest playlists. Those are all out there on the streaming services. We'll give more information about that at the end of the episode. But I think that's going to take us to our recommendations, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. For the past few seasons, we have been trying to make recommendations based upon a specific year. We've found our way to the aughts, and in that this is the third episode of season 7, we are now making recommendations for pop culture that came out in the year 2003.
Why don't you let me go first? Because I went with music. I'm going to surprise everyone with my staff pick, by the way, because it's not music. It's not a movie. It's a freaking book. So I look through all the stuff like I always do, and I always look for something that has somewhat personal meaning. And the one that struck me is a band that I've recommended as an unknown unknown. It's the Pernice Brothers and their album Yours, Mine, and Ours. which I agree is probably their best album. They just came out with a new album that is really solid, really good, but have a hard time topping this one from 2003. The reviews for this, and it showed up in Metacritic as the fourth or fifth best reviewed album of that year. And Metacritic, if folks don't
Huh.
know, gathers all the various reviews, assigns them a number. It was way up there in numbers, and it had quite a few perfect ratings. And the best review that I read, or the best line in a review that I read, sort of sums up the Pernice brothers perfectly. It's the balance between Joe Pernice's resigned words and uplifting melodies remains sublime. So if you listen to their lyrics, they are so freaking depressing. I mean, at times it's just like there's a song called "Cut the Baby in Two," which isn't literally talking about cutting the baby in two, but they're referencing that biblical story of,
Mhm.
I forget who it was that, was willing to cut the baby in two.
Well, it's the wisdom of Solomon, right? Wasn't it? Wasn't it
Yes, is that
Solomon
what it
that was
was?
supposed to?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
could be.
think so.
Yeah, so those are pretty dark references. But the best song on the album is the opening track is my favorite, and it's made it on multiple playlists. Speaking of which, is "The Weakest Shade of Blue." Um,
Yeah.
it's a song that references the color blue, which means it's almost always a downbeat song, but the music is so uplifting and the words are so downbeat, which characterizes them so much. And it's, I think, why I think I can come back to them because their earlier incarnations as the Scud Mountain Boys were depressing as hell songs and slow as hell songs. And there's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like, just pummel you with sadness. And th this finds a way to, as they said, that perfect balance between that uplifting music, not so uplifting lyrics, but catchy as hell. And that's easily as one of the better albums out there. And it's shocking that they have less than 1,000 followers on YouTube Music.
Yeah. I want to go back and change the title of my melancholy playlist to Pummel You with Sadness. That could be the title of your memoir, perhaps. I'm not sure. You got to hold on to it. Pummel You with Sadness. I'm a fan of that one. So I'm recommending a film from 2003. Again, I think it's a kind of a hidden gem. I do believe it won some awards, and I did fail to look up whether, how it did in the festival circuit, but it felt like one of those independent films, festival circuit type of movies. It's called The Station Agent. It was written and directed by Tom McCarthy, starred Peter Dinklage, Patricia Clarkson, and Bobby Cannavale. They're all well-known actors at this point. In 2003, they were, I think, lesser known. In particular, Cannavale, I don't remember seeing him in anything. He's been in a ton of TV shows and movies since 2003. The summary that I read in IMDb says, when his only friend dies, a man born with dwarfism moves to rural New Jersey to live a life of solitude, only to meet a chatty hot dog vendor and a woman dealing with her own personal loss. So Patricia Clarkson is the woman dealing with her own personal loss. And Bobby Cannavale was definitely the chatty hot dog vendor. He's the comic relief in the film. He's he I can't remember the circumstances that caused him to take his hot dog truck and move to this rural area of New Jersey from northern New Jersey. But he's definitely like a full on high energy, kind of obnoxious New York, New Jersey type. And Peter Dinklage, of course, is famous now for Game of Thrones, but also he was an elf. He's a fantastic actor, and it's interesting to me. I think he's in a movie right now that actually kind of plays off the fact that he's a little person, because he's, most of the last 10 years of his career, they just kind of cast him in a role, and it doesn't really matter what his stature is, what his size is. It's just based upon his acting. He's fantastic. But anyway, this movie is really touching. It is very sad in a lot of ways. It's very melancholy because of the issues that each of these individuals are dealing with. Primarily just kind of loneliness, and it's a great story about how these three couldn't be more different types of people find each other and become friends. And there's some really cool scenes. Peter Dinklage's character is really into trains. So, Bobby Cannavale wants to be friends with him and wants to enjoy these things, but he doesn't really get it, and there's just a lot of kind of clash of all these different personalities, but it's a great story about how they learn to kind of accept each other's faults and different personalities and still become this odd trio of friends who are all dealing with their own stuff. So anyway, it's a really good movie. It's really worth seeing. And when I was looking at what came out in 2003, it really jumped up off the screen to me as a good recommendation. That takes us to Post Facto.
It's a mistake. It's a mistake.
In editing the last episode, I did not find that either of us made any kind of errors or mistakes or anything, but Post Facto also gives us a chance to go out and fill in those blanks. And for the 3 people who would give a shit, I was trying to think of the name of the bar we were at the night that a friend and fraternity brother ended up throwing lobster all over his room. And it's a bar that no longer exists. I think it no longer exists at all, but at the time it was really popular on the Landing. And there was also one in Columbia, Missouri, where the University of Missouri was, and it was called Harpo's. And in my head, I kept thinking Hugo's. I don't even know where that comes from. But Harpo's was a place where people went all the time. And all the Mizzou people went there, all the Mizzou graduates and alumni who lived in the St. Louis area, the young alums anyway, would always end up at Harpo's. And it was just this big kind of open air bar. And they were very generous with the kamikaze shots on the night in question. But I couldn't think of the name last episode, and I actually had to ask my wife, who remembered and reminded me that it was Harpo's.
Why I get so much joy, why this podcast has been so valuable to Tom and me, is that we forget stuff like that, which we do all the time. But if we do it on a podcast, this caused Tom to text me at 6:55 on Saturday night, Harpo's! Double exclamation point.
Yep, that was it.
And I just laughed because going through
It
all
doesn't
stuff.
even. Oh.
Yeah, there's no con. No, it's okay. I just going through a lot of stuff at work and all that other stuff, and I saw that and I just laughed out loud, and that made my day.
Yeah, doesn't really call for response. It's just, hey, here's this thing.
So Harpo's, yes, they were always generous with the kamikaze shots.
She actually also, what other bar was down there? And it wasn't the bar I was thinking of, Harpo's when I was telling the story last time. But the other bar that was down there, not far from those 2 places, was Sundecker's. Remember Sundecker's?
Oh yeah, I remember the name. Yes, I do.
It's not one I remember going to very often, but those were Sundecker's and Harpo's were bars. I don't even know if they had kitchens. I think they just served booze, I swear. And that was all on that same side of the street as Mississippi Nights, which was the music venue, which we found out last episode is no longer as well.
What was the name of the Irish bar we went to all the time after we got done working at a spaghetti factory?
Was that the one that was by Union Station?
No, it was just across the street. It was back behind.
Oh yeah. It was kind of tucked in more, right? It was up a street or two.
Yeah. But he was always so generous to us with drinks because we worked at a spaghetti factory. But to this day, I tell the story of you and I trying a martini for the first time because we at a spaghetti factory, I forget who it was, one of the other bartenders taught us the trick of putting in the vermouth, swishing it around the glass, and then tossing it out, and then filling it either with vodka or gin, whichever type they were drinking. So you and I were like, hey, let's have a freaking martini. So we got one of us got a vodka and one of us got a gin. So that we watched him make it, and this wasn't a place that made a lot of martinis. So when he poured it in one of those big ass, beer glass, it wasn't a tiny little martini glass, and he filled a shit ton of martini and then a shit ton more of the gin and the vodka, whichever one we were drinking. You and I each took a sip and we're like, oh no.
Yes.
This is like the nastiest thing he had ever drank. Whoever got the gin was even worse off because gin's a rough alcohol to drink by itself anyway. So,
Yeah, it was well because the vermouth. That's what I found out. I hate vermouth. I hate dry vermouth.
yes,
It's so gross.
yes,
God, I can't remember the name of. I will tell you the name of the guy who taught us that because I'm pretty sure it was Dave Buser,
yes, I'm pretty sure it was too.
who by the way, I think got us our jobs there.
Yeah.
You, me, and Dave Plurhead. And I cannot remember the name because there were in St. Louis, there were basically two industry bars, right? There were only two bars that I think they could be open till 3 a.m. They had a 3 a.m. license. Is
I
that what it
think it
was?
was 3 a.m. Yeah.
Two or three. That was one of them. And then there was the one that was by Union Station, which weirdly now I can't think of the names of either of those places. Those are the only places. So everybody who worked at bars and restaurants would end up there. You know, they like we'd close, we'd be done at 11 or midnight, and then everybody would go to those other bars, and it would just only be servers and bartenders at those places.
Yeah. So that's not how you make a martini.
No, no, the way you described is the best way to make a martini. Although if you drink a martini made correctly, still kind of sucks.
Don't disagree. I tried one within the last 6 months, and I won't go back for another 20 years. So
Yeah, it's the vermouth. I hate the taste of vermouth. I don't particularly like gin, although I've had some good gins. My wife sells liquor, and there's a distiller in Philadelphia that makes actually really good what they call American gin, as opposed to London gin. And it's okay, but I won't drink it as a martini. Blech. That's my review of dry vermouth. Blech.
I'm with you. I now have a small bottle of dry vermouth up in my liquor cabinet that will stay there until I throw it away in another 6 months.
Until you have to perform dental work on yourself. You can use it for that. So we're up to stat picks, buddy.
Just around the corner from you.
I got a book.
Oh, that's right. I'd already forgotten. I'm so excited. Not only am I excited, but I can see it on the outline. Don't know the author, don't know the book. So
I barely know the author and barely know the book, but I'm still going to recommend it. So staff picks is where Tom and I make recommendations for new material, like you would find it back in the day on the board where some staff member would say, "Hey, I like this new thing." And I almost always pick music because I mean, you got to read to recommend a book. All you got to do is listen to recommend music. And you got to sit down and watch a movie usually for a couple hours. So as far as total investment, music is almost always my choice. But I couldn't find anything that I loved this week on the new list. There's probably some decent stuff, but nothing really stood out to me. So I've been complaining for episodes now about how long it's taken me to finish the book that I recommended for the 1999 episode, which is now like 4 away from here, called Cryptonomicon. I'm still only about 400 pages into that 1,300
I
page
meant to ask.
monstrosity. It's still going slow. So I think I was looking for an excuse to start reading something else. So I went and got this book. Sorry, I should give the title. I think I'm going to end up reading more of his stuff, but the author's name is Stephen Graham Jones. He is from the Blackfeet tribe. He's Native American, and at least his last couple of books, this one included, include Native American themes. And apparently, what he does, and this might scare you off a little bit, Tom, but it sounds intriguing to me because he gets fantastic reviews. He does a lot to dive into history and culture and the place of Native Americans in American society in kind of unique ways. So his last book it was titled The Only Good Indian, and it was a horror story. It received really great reviews. This one is called The Buffalo Hunter Hunter. So the opening scene is the year 2012. They're doing a dig and they find an old diary. And it just so happens that the great, great, great granddaughter of the person who wrote the diary is involved in this dig. She's trying to get tenure. So she's really excited about this cool historical find. Turns out the story that her great 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 grandfather is telling is about a Native American, a Blackfeet vampire who slowly kills off a colonization of whites. I guess I shouldn't say colonization because it's set in 1912. And one of the great lines on the book is, I am the Indian who can't die. I am the worst dream America ever had. So I think the story, I haven't finished it, but I'm excited about so far what I've read, is this vampire confesses to the priest, and that's who it's the priest whose diary they find, and this is the writings of what happened. And again, I have a long way to go, not as far as I have with Cryptonomicon, so it's a good chance I'll finish before this episode. But I'm excited about this author. As I said, he gets really great reviews. His writing is praised mightily, and I think if you can find that balance with having something as bizarre as a vampire story to be a fantastic insight into Native American culture and, their place in current America, that is saying something for your writing.
I feel like I need to clarify because as you started to describe this, you said this might turn you off because it involves history and culture. I'm like, wait a second, what are you saying? But now,
No.
now that you described it, it's the horror and vampire part that you said.
Yes.
And I gotta admit that I'm like, maybe I'll just wait for Chris's review of the final part of it. But
I will have a post facto on our next recording. I will commit to that because this one's already drawn me in. Not the Cryptonomicon didn't, but it's just so long.
yeah, I'm a little surprised I haven't heard of the author at all because that seems like a very unique perspective to write what sounds like kind of Native American horror. And I guess it's been done before in different versions, but boy, I'll tell you what, it sounds like a movie. It sounds like somebody probably already owns the film rights to a Native American kind of Western / horror thing. That seems like that would sell tickets, frankly.
Yeah, and NPR loves them. So check out NPR's book reviews.
Cool. You know what? That was the other thing I was going to bring up, and you were talking about it in terms of music, but I didn't realize that Metacritic reviewed music as well as films. I'm only familiar with it as far as film ratings are concerned. I didn't know it did music. I'll have to look into it. I never had any idea.
And I think I generally have gone there for movie reviews, but I was looking, I'll just go to like YouTube Music and they'll have new releases and I'll find something like that. So I was looking through all the different lists and for some reason they popped up early in the search. I clicked on them and then boom, their list.
Yeah, that's I didn't know that. Returning to our staff picks, we a couple episodes ago decided not to do, at least temporarily, we're not doing what we call unknown unknowns and recommending artists or musicians or writers or whatever it might be who we feel are criminally underappreciated. And I knew when we decided to do that I was going to end up just trying to slide my unknown unknowns into things like staff picks. So generally speaking, with staff picks, we've always said we want to recommend things that are either new or coming out. And I stand by that for the most part. But I just read a book, which is fairly new and I certainly wouldn't go under unknown unknowns, but as a staff pick, Jeff Tweedy wrote a book called World Within a Song. It's a year or two old. It's been out for a bit, but I just finally read it a week or two ago, and it's fine. And I'm not recommending the book, but the book talks about all the songs that meant things to him, that were important to him for one reason or another. And one of those songs came from an album from 1973. And I had never heard of this singer, even though I know a bunch of his songs and a lot of his stuff has been covered. The album is called My Maria. The musician is B.W. Stevenson. And when I read about it in Tweedy's book, I thought, well, that's interesting. I know that song, My Maria. I love that song. But I love the cover version that was done by Gear Daddies back probably in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I'm embarrassed to say, didn't realize it was a cover. I thought that they wrote that song. I thought that that was a Gear Daddies original. And it's not. It's not. It's by this guy, B.W. Stevenson. Kind of dug deep into iTunes and found this album, My Maria, which the version that Gear Daddies do is very, very true to the original. It's just a cool song, and this guy's great songwriter, and it's just like really kind of light pop music. My Maria is great. It's just a love song to a girl named Maria. He also wrote the song that I think it's called My Shambhala, which isn't all that different musically speaking, melody wise to My Maria, but also on that same album. So I'm recommending something that is not new at all. The album My Maria that came out in 1973 by B.W. Stevenson, but it's really worth listening to. And I think it's kind of a cool staff pick that doubles as an unknown unknown for this episode.
And I had no idea that My Maria was a cover either.
No idea at all. And like I said, it's pretty straight cover. They don't really change it at all. And it's I always liked that song, and I think Your Daddies did it both on a studio album and then on one of their live album. That was that weird connection in my brain that happened when I read about it in Tweedy's book, because he doesn't talk about Your Daddies at all. He was definitely talking about this particular version, the original version of the song.
And it seems like, as you said, it seems like such a perfect Dear Daddy song. So I just assume, like, it's funny how we assume certain songs come from that artist, even if they've been covers.
Yeah. It's happened to me more than once, but I thought this was kind of cool. And again, turns out I like the whole album, so it was worth recommending the whole thing.
Nice job.
That's my step pick.
I like that one. I'm gonna go check that out because it's only a song. It only takes me like 3 minutes to listen to it. So
true. Although it's also the name of the album, so you could take roughly
35 minutes. Yeah, 35 minutes.
Yeah, they're all short pop songs, though. They're fun.
How can my Shambhala, whatever it's called? Is that word? Shambalaya?
The way he sings it is Shambhala. Shambhala. Yeah. That's a good one, too. It's like 2 minutes. You got time.
I got time for that. So this is an episode about playlists, and that will take us to our playlist picks. So as I noted earlier, for every season, Tom and I compile a playlist. We'll choose a song each for every episode. Ideally ties in with the theme of the episode, and we're going to try to do that. This is, what do you call that? Where it's like, is it meta or something? Like where it's an episode about playlists and we're picking songs about playlists to put on a playlist. I don't know. It seems like there's multiple layers there that.
It does sound meta. It's definitely, we're very self-referential here. Right?
Yeah, the self-referential. I like that. There you go. So what was your choice for the season 7, episode 3 playlist?
I looked at our outline because we kind of fill the blanks in separately. And we both went the same route, which is we went through the old playlist and just picked like one of our favorite songs from the playlist. And really, I think in our case, from our, some of the favorite playlists that we've had over the years. So the song I picked was from what I think we both believe was the very first one. I called it the D checklist. It's the one that has like 60 songs on it or something.
Yep, that's one I used to.
And I picked a song that I picked for the playlist, so I'm patting myself on the back, of course. But it's from 1999, and the song title is The Other Side by Bob Schneider. The album, which is it's just a great album title, is Songs Sung and Played on the Guitar at the Same Time. That's the silliest song or album title I think I've ever heard. I love it. Bob Schneider is awesome. He's a great balladeer, I would say. He writes really, really funny, poignant, smart songs. And I don't remember how I discovered him. I don't remember where this particular song came from, but it was one of the early songs I put on that D checklist because I was so proud of finding this guy and this song, The Other Side. So that's my pick for this episode's playlist.
Yeah, and I took the same path. And the reason I know that songs get grayed out and not stay on the playlist is because it happened to this song, which drew my attention to it. And then I remember putting it on the playlist, and I think you got into the song pretty quickly. The song is Beautiful Lies
yes.
by Tanner Usrey, U-S-R-E-Y, if you're looking him up. So Tanner Usrey is blossoming into a more popular artist. He has about 30,000 followers on YouTube Music, which isn't huge. He's a great songwriter, and this is one of my favorite sad and beautiful songs. I think it was only released as a single. It's from 2019, and I would strongly encourage folks to check out our playlist because I think Tom and I both chose songs that I think inspired the others because I've been listening to Bob Schneider ever since you put this song on that. I have quite a few of his songs on my own personal playlist or my liked and all that stuff. So, and Tanner Usry is really worth checking out. So,
Yeah, of the I'd say hundreds of songs, or at least dozens of songs that you've recommended to me or put on a playlist in the last, I want to say 5 years or so. This is one that I listen to the most. There are just two or three songs that you've recommended that have become all-time favorites for me. And I have Beautiful Lies on two or three of my own playlists. I think it's even on my workout playlist because the beats per minute work, even though it's a very slow
yeah.
song, but the beats per minute work for me. Like it's either my at the warm-up part of my workout playlist, or it's the cool down part. But I absolutely love this song. I think it's one of the most beautiful breakup songs I've ever heard in my life. And it is, at some point we'll probably do some kind of episode where we talk about each other's picks as opposed to our own picks. And this is one of the best ones I think you've ever put on a playlist. I love Beautiful Lies. And to kind of sneak into staff pick territory, I'm sure you know this, but he just released a single, actually. Tanner Usry just released a single, I want to say it was last week. Maybe it's 2 weeks ago, but it's good. He will be hard pressed though to ever come up with a song as good as "Beautiful Lies." I love the fact that it is both "Beautiful Lies" and "Beautiful Eyes." That's one of my favorite parts of that song.
And the only one that competed, because this one stood out for a variety of reasons, as I said, the only one that I almost did, but I didn't want to see you cry like a little baby, was Waiting on June.
Yeah, I might have shed a tear. That's possible.
You've commented a few times on how many times you've listened to that song too, and cried every single time, you big baby.
I thought you were going to say that Jeffrey Martin song, because that's
Oh
another
yeah,
one that
yeah.
is also on my workout playlist, and it's just that those are probably the two best songs you've ever picked. Were Tanner Usher's song,
Sad Blue Eyes.
"Sad Blue Eyes" by Jeffrey Martin. Yeah, holy cow, is that good?
Did you see that? I snuck in 2 extra picks.
Yeah, I like that. See, you're getting the hang of this. See what I've been trying to do for a year now.
That brings us to the end of our episode, one about playlists. Tom and I got to reminisce a little bit, and I am going to go on record. And Tom, you can cut this out of the episode if you want. I mean, this is why Tom and I do the podcast. We realize it's not going to appeal to everyone. Tom's
Or my
dead.
dad.
Yeah.
I
But
do.
we hope some folks get something out of it. There's a lot of good music, a lot of other stuff we've recommended. Encourage you to check it out. But this was one that we did for ourselves. I'm just going to say it. And we enjoyed it, and we hope you do too.
Absolutely. So along those lines, please keep in mind that our season 7 playlist streams on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music. All of our prior seasons, we have 6 season playlists now that stream on those platforms. So you can listen to any of those, follow along. We update season 7 with each episode. So by the time you listen to this, there will be 6 songs on that playlist. And ideally, at the end of the season, when we close it all down, there will be 20 songs total. And again, we do our best to recommend good music, first of all, but also music that maybe you haven't heard of. And you can find it on all those streamers. You can also find links to our playlists, our season playlists, as well as special playlists that we put out occasionally on our website. So look for the music, listen to it, download it, share it, and tell us what you think. Third Song In is recorded in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and Joliet, Illinois. You can email us at thirdsongin@gmail.com. Please use that email address. Tell us what you think of this episode, past episodes, music picks, playlists. Tell us your favorite songs. Communicate with us. You can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and YouTube Music. We'd ask you to follow us wherever you do listen to your podcast. Rate us. Give us all your goddamn stars.
That's my favorite part. I laugh at that part every single freaking time. And we've been doing it for 71 episodes or whatever, 73.
You can also review the podcast on any of those streaming services. You can download it and share it. Please do those things for us. Help us push our numbers up.
Yes, let's push those numbers up. You can also push our website numbers up. We have a dedicated website, thirdsonginpodcast.com. From the very front page, you can listen to the latest episode. There's a link to our blogs. Tom and I put one out. Take turns every other week putting out essays on what's occurring to us, reviews, stuff like that. Strongly encourage you to check that out. We also have special guests on a regular basis. You can go to our As Mentioned site, get information on our guests, including schedules where they might be appearing, information about materials that they've put out, music, books, etc. And all the recommendations, staff picks, and the unknown unknowns have their own dedicated pages on our website. Check it out and let us know what you think about it. There's a place where you can email us directly from the website.
You can also find us on Facebook, where you can communicate with us. We try to put links there to our guests as well, pictures, videos, links to the blog, etc. The blog can also be found on Substack, and if you would subscribe to us on Substack, I would appreciate it. You've been listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Thanks for listening. Couldn't you hear me thinking there?
I heard the gears moving.
Yeah, all I could smell is like smoke and burnt toast.
What is this topic?
That's a bad sign.
You're listening to Third Song In with Chris Derrickson and Tom Polachek. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome to the bleh.
Welcome to the, let me fuck this up. Just pummel you with sadness.